Welcome to my channel. Today I'd like to show you a technique that you can use to decorate card, and this one is called stippling. For this I'm going to be using a sheet of 160 grams card. I've got these little brushes called stippling brushes. One thing that you'll notice about them is that they're absolutely flat on the edge. Now if you don't have a stippling brush, then just make sure that you've got a hog's hair brush and use a round one. It does work, although obviously a little bit differently to this. These are nice and stubby, and we normally use these for stenciling. And then I have three colors of acrylic paint. I've got yellow, orange and red, and I'm working within the same color palette so that when I'm putting my colors on, that they're not going to turn to mud. So I'm going to set those aside for now, and I have already decanted some paint into my little foam-alike tray. I like working with these because they just can easily be washed or thrown away. And what I'm going to do now is that I'm just going to spread some of this paint to the side. Let me put this down. And then I'm going to wiggle it onto the brush. Now one of the things you want to make sure of when you're doing this stippling technique is that you don't have a lot of paint on your brush. And by that I mean you want to be able to see the individual bristles of your brush so that you don't get big blobs. So if necessary, just wipe some of it off. And the stippling simply means that you're going to take your brush and you're going to almost pounce this, you're going to dab down at 90 degrees and put the color over the card. If I need to, I can pick up a little bit more of this fairly dry paint and I can just spread it all over. Now you want to layer your colors here, so yellow being the lightest color, I'm putting that down first because it's always difficult to keep your light areas when you are doing work, and the yellow will show through the other colors. One thing too to notice about colors is that whatever color you put on last will be the most dominant color, and so we can play with that as we're working along. But you can see this doesn't take very long to do, and as I'm dabbing over without re-inking the brush, the color gets slightly softer, so you can really play around with what colors combinations you want and the intensities of that. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do is, sorry, I've just picked up a little bit of a dry bristle there. I'm going to just on the same brush pick up a bit of the orange, and again you're wanting to make sure that the brush, you can see all the bristles so that it's fairly dry. And now I'm going to layer this over the yellow, and because the application is dry, you're going to find that it's not mixing together as paints normally would in these instances. So I'm just putting my second color on, going all over. Can pick up a little bit more for want, and you'll be amazed at how much is just in that thin little layer on the tray, enough to actually get a nice gentle finish here. Right, so this is going quite quickly. Nice rhythmic sound, good way to get rid of stress if you are feeling stressed. And then the third color I'm going to work with is a little bit of this red, and again I'm just going to take some and swish it around onto my little tray to make sure that I've actually got a nice dry application. And I'm going to put some of this on. So I'm going to start right at the edge with this now and just dab some on. So you can already see how beautifully the yellow and the orange are starting to glow through the red that I'm putting on. And that's why I wanted to start with the yellow first, because it gives you this nice vibrancy to the actual colors that you're working with. I'm going to show you a trick once I've finished this, but I do want to show you what the red on surface looks like first. Right, so this doesn't take long to do at all. There we go. Right, so I've now stippled that all over. And if I wanted to change the emphasis, say for instance I'd done my piece of card and I thought, gosh, I don't like red being the dominant color, I can go in and I can take a little bit more of the orange, and watch what happens now when I put the orange on. Can you see how the red is actually starting to fade away and the orange is becoming more dominant? So the secret here is that the color that is over the top becomes the more dominant color. And let me just show you completely with that by doing this with the yellow. I'm just actually wiping some of this orange off on a dry cloth because the yellow is actually quite a weak pigment compared to the others. So now you've got these fairly dark colors and you decide you want to go to a much more yellow color, much lighter, and look what's happening. Can you see how it's actually pushing the darker colors to the background and the yellow is becoming more dominant? It's a good trick to know this when you are working with colors, that you can play around. It obviously is more easy when the application is thin. So if you were working with thick acrylic paints and you'd cover the whole surface, it would be very difficult to do this technique because the light colors don't always sit very easily over the dark colors. But it works beautifully with this dry brush technique, and also if you're working on fabric with fabric paints, it works really well. So there's one idea that you can use to actually create a really nice textured background. It gives you a light feeling, it's stippled, you can play around with your colors, and I hope you have fun with that. Bye for now.